If you asked me 5 years ago if I'd go to Iraq, I'd probably say, why? But here I am. I mean, all I knew about Iraq when I was growing up was that there was a war there and it was poor and it was very dangerous. Nothing more. As a football fan, what I knew about Iraq as a kid was that they won the 2007 Asian Cup. It didn't really make sense then, and I didn't understand the gravity of its significance. But things changed some years later when one of my friends posted stories from this beautiful place, and I was like, man, where is that? And he was like, this is Iraq. I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say. When I saw the pictures, I was like, this is Iraq? This place that is seen as dangerous, war-torn, don't go there, poor. I was speechless. Another thing that tipped me off about Iraq on social media was connecting with a guy I saw who'd go there to buy jerseys that were authentic, many of them actually very rare, for apparently unbelievably cheap prices. And that's when I realized, okay, maybe there's something more here that meets the eye. Buying these authentic jerseys that are beautiful, very expensive in most other places, for next to nothing? In Iraq? Come on. So these ideas started turning in my head of maybe Iraq is a place that is worth visiting. And I wasn't sure what was needed in order to navigate. When I was in Jordan, there was a guy I met in my hostel who told me, I've been driving overland up to this point from Europe. And I said to him, wow, really? Where have you gone? And he was starting to list all the countries and he said, I just came from Iraq. And I said to him, tell me everything that you know about traveling in Iraq. I've been very curious to go to this place and you are gonna give me the information that I need. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. I went couchsurfing in Iraq. One day later, my visa processed, my flight was booked, and I was off to Iraq to go couchsurfing. I didn't even think about going there to make a video about this. I just wanted to go and see Iraq for myself. And what I experienced was unlike anything I could have imagined. A lot of people asked me, can you even go to Iraq? Well, the answer is yes. And in fact, all but 2 countries can go there on an e-visa. All you have to do is go on the government website, fill out the application form, pay the fee of $150, and within 24 hours, your application will be processed and either approved or declined. I applied at nighttime, went to sleep, woke up, my application was approved, and after that, I bought my ticket and was off to Iraq. Now, that's the next question. How do you get to Iraq? Well, you can get there overland if you travel from Kuwait in the south, Jordan from the west. I went from Jordan and I knew they had direct flights from Amman to Baghdad. There's many flights from surrounding Middle Eastern countries. The easiest way to get to Iraq is probably from some connecting flight in the Middle East or overland with a neighboring country. I took Royal Jordanian Air from Amman to Baghdad. I wouldn't call it the cheapest flight for the distance that you're going. However, flying directly to Iraq versus having to lay over or do this whole logistical runaround is a lot easier. I bought my ticket the week before and it cost around $200 to $250. For a 1 to 2 hour flight, not super cheap, but again, for the sake of convenience, worth it. Apparently, you could take a taxi overland from Amman to Baghdad that costs $100. But when you consider the uncertainty of how long it takes to cross the border when you actually get there, the safety with the roads, the convenience of flying 1 hour for twice the price was much more worth it in my opinion. The next logistical element to take care of was accommodation. And after I talked with the guy who had went there, he told me couchsurfing is the best option in Iraq. So after hearing his story, I rolled the dice on staying with a stranger in Iraq. Now, if you're wondering, what is Couchsurfing? Couchsurfing is actually an official app that you can use to stay with strangers for free in other countries. Couchsurfing is actually quite popular in Iraq compared to booking hotels because hotel accommodations are very difficult to find online. And for anyone who do, they charge 4 times the price compared to if you book it in person. So either way, when you go to Iraq, you have to roll the dice on arranging accommodation with somebody that either you don't know beforehand or playing hotel roulette when you get to downtown Baghdad. The thing with using Couchsurfing is that there's verified profiles and unverified profiles. While I'd already made a brave decision, I didn't want to go that much deeper into my courage bag. So when looking for profiles of who I would stay with on Couchsurfing, I decided that I was only going to keep it to verified. I found one in Baghdad that seemed to be trustworthy. We made an agreement for me to stay there for a few days just to get the lay of the land. And afterwards, then I could go and find a hotel to stay at because it's much easier upon arrival than beforehand. And the biggest regret I have was not doing this earlier. Going in, I had no idea what to expect, but it turned out to be one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had traveling. That first night in Iraq is one I'll never forget. We went to this cafe that had the most intense aura I'd ever experienced. The video doesn't even do justice to how crazy it was walking into this place. And of course, walking around, you don't really see any foreign tourists. Not that you'd expect any, but there was something very interesting about being here. Once I learned my Couchsurfing host loved football as well, immediately we hit it off. I got to meet many of his friends. We went out for dinner. We explored downtown Baghdad in the evenings. It was so fun. There's a very surreal feeling of raw adventure that you can't understand until you're in it when you're visiting a place that has very few tourists like Iraq. The last and most important logistical piece is money. How do you get it? Well, everything in Iraq operates off of cash. What you have to do is bring United States dollars into the country, and as much as you think you're going to spend because you're sure as hell not using any ATMs, and you trade it not at the airport, not at the bank, on the black market. That is where you're going to get the best rate. Now, the thing is, on my first day, I didn't know where I could exchange for the black market rate. So all I had with me was US dollars. And I decided to go to the gym across the street from where I was staying. And I had an interaction with locals that would set the tone for the rest of the trip. So before I had traded money, I only had United States dollars. And when I went to the gym, I asked them if I could pay in USD. After a bit of a confusing interaction, they just told me, go work out and we'll take care of payment later. Once my workout was finished, one of the guys at the gym who spoke English, he called me into his office. He sat me down. He said to me, he's like, come on, sit down. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said to me, why are you in Iraq? To which I responded, tourism. But then he asked me again, no. Why are you in Iraq? My answer to his question set the stage for the most memorable conversation I've had with anyone in the 35 countries I've traveled to so far. We talked for 3 hours about everything. We talked about what it was like growing up in Iraq, perceptions, myths, football, and its impact on this country. It was better than those conversations you'd have with your friends when you were playing FIFA into the wee hours of the night. And their hospitality blew me away. Once we started talking, they busted out snacks, they brought out drinks, and I shared what my mission is in each country I travel to. There's always 3 things: fridge magnets, the flag, and the national football jersey. And they said to me, we are going to help you in your mission with getting an Iraqi flag and the national team jersey. I was so grateful that they wanted to help me with my mission. And sure enough, a few days later, they delivered on their promise. For a country that has been known for not being the wealthiest, for having gone through some of the most treacherous conflicts in the last 40 years, the generosity of these people was unlike anything I'd experienced in the region, and not just that, but in many places in the world. There's a few countries I've been to that have famous reputations for having some of the most hospitable people, and Iraq is absolutely one of those. One of the things that the gentleman from the gym had said to me, it's always going to stick with me. We were talking about what it was like growing up in Iraq. I was asking him questions, and he said to me, nobody likes war. Nobody. And although it was a simple statement, the look that I saw on his face when he said it to me spoke volumes. As a kid, I knew that Iraq won the 2007 Asian Cup against what seemed like pretty impossible odds, but I didn't fully understand the magnitude of their victory. So I asked him, what do you remember from Iraq winning the 2007 Asian Cup? The look on his face when he was recounting the memories of Iraq winning the 2007 Asian Cup hit really deep. That part of the conversation was all I needed to know about how much these people have endured in recent history and how meaningful it was that they won this international trophy. After we finished our 3-hour conversation, he insisted, you are our guest and you're welcome anytime. It'll always blow my mind that people in a place like Iraq that has very little compared to most of the countries in the world has some of the most generous people who are willing to give you the shirt off their back. So only a few days in, I had the national flag and the national team football jersey. Speaking of jerseys, I still had an important side quest to complete in Iraq. Finding out what is it really like to explore the jersey markets that apparently have the cheapest authentic football jerseys in the world. At first, I didn't even know where to look. I asked some locals and said, hey, you know, where do you think you could find used jerseys, etc., that kind of thing. And they pointed me to this place that was called The Bales. It was in central Baghdad. And so I decided to go there on the first day and just have a look around and see what there was. And there was a few cool things I found, but man, it is a zoo. It's so big. You could spend hours and hours there just digging into the crevices of every stand. It would take you, honestly, a month if you wanted to sit down and just really get into all the corners to find exactly what you're looking for. Some tables, gold mines. Others, fool's gold. You never know what you're gonna get. So for the people who go there to search for jerseys, I understand why they take their time because it's really a mixed bag. But I knew that a mission like this couldn't be completed alone. So I enlisted in help from a local guy who collects jerseys, and he kindly showed me the ropes. And let me tell you, being there felt like being in Raiders of the Lost Ark. These jerseys are being handled by top men. Who? Top men. Once you really strike the jackpot, you won't want to leave. Not that it's an endless catalog of any jersey you want at any time, but I will say the search there is worth its while. Don't believe me? Go see for yourself. It was wild to see how many authentic jerseys there were buried under piles of clothing. But I started to realize that football in Iraq isn't just about jerseys you can find. It's much more than that. To understand, we have to look back in history. In 2007, Iraq had qualified for the AFC Asian Cup. The team was experiencing many issues, not just on the pitch, but also off of it. For instance, they had some of the weakest passports in the world, making any time they traveled internationally a huge pain in the ass. 2, they didn't even have any facilities that they could train at. They had to go and practice in Southeast Asia or in other regions far away from home just to give themselves an opportunity to prepare for the tournament. 3, their head coach wasn't even hired until 2 months before the tournament. The team also experienced a lot of issues with religious and ethnic division, and so the coach, his job wasn't even to teach the players the X's and O's. He shared in interviews afterwards, his goal was just to make sure that the players liked each other. And as fate would have it, Iraq, though they didn't start well, were able to pick up some momentum throughout the tournament. Eventually, in a semi-final match against South Korea, they won in miraculous fashion, advancing to the final. But there was a bombing that killed 50 people. After the celebration, the players, scared for their safety, weren't sure if they even wanted to play in the final and considered forfeiting. But there was a famous clip of a woman on TV who appeared, begging the team and telling them, "I will not bury my 2 sons until you bring home the trophy." It's safe to say that her message resounded with them loud and clear. Winning the Asian Cup was definitely a turning point for Iraq. However, it didn't solve all their problems. They've still experienced tons of hardship in the years after that. And yet, in light of all of that, the kindness and the humility of the people I met never wavered. The whole time I was there, people back home constantly said things to me like, "Isn't it dangerous? I would never go there. Do you have a death wish?" To which I would respond, "Do I look like I'm in any danger?" Yes, Iraq doesn't have the most perfect past, but that history has never stopped its people from living full and generous lives. Iraq isn't just a place with negative media headlines. It's home to one of the most important civilizations in human history. And in order to understand the world, you have to see where it came from.